Welcome. It's very nice to have you here, and let's get right to it. So I'm going to share with you today the secrets that will allow you to be successful at anything you want in your life, anything at all, health, career, finance, relationships, spiritually, anything that you want. I'm going to share with you exactly how you can be successful at that. And I should warn you up front that you have an inner enemy that is working against you, that is going to try very hard to prevent you from actually hearing this and receiving it and implementing it in your life. The reason that it doesn't want you to do that is because then it will be out of business, because it has hijacked your life and it's running your life, and it's not for your benefit that it's doing all of that. And that makes it sound very sinister. It's not sinister at all. It's actually your own creation, but you have created something that is unconsciously, you created something that you've installed as uh the well, I don't know what you call it, the president of your operation, and it doesn't want to be out of business. And so when you actually hear and understand what I'm about to tell you, then it will have to be out of business. And so it's going to work very hard to ensure that you don't hear it. And that might sound crazy to think that you wouldn't be able to hear it, but that you won't be able to hear it, which is why I'm going to have to repeat it many times. In fact, I've repeated it many times. This is not going to be entirely new if you've been around here. But it is it diverts your attention away from what is actually being offered. And it's so clever at doing that that you don't even know. You have no clue what's going on. You think that you're present and you're not. You think you're awake and you're asleep. So I'm going to share with you now exactly the secrets that will allow you to be successful at anything that you want in your life. Are you ready? So you are an infinitely creative being. We call this by many names, whatever name you call it. It's the truth of who you are. You're an infinitely creative being. You are creating your experience always in its entirety. There is nothing about your experience that is not your creation. Every last detail, every minutia of your experience is completely your creation. Everything. And just repeat that. Everything, every aspect of your experience is your creation. There is nothing about your experience that is excluded from that. So think about that for a second, what that means. So your inner experience, your outer experience, every last bit of it is entirely your creation. And this is not just, this is the truth. And you can know that that's the truth by actually paying attention. And so this gets us to now some of the secrets of how you can create your experience consciously, because up to now what's happened is you've been creating your experience unconsciously. So when I say that you're an infinitely creative being and you're creating all of your experience always, without exception, every last detail, your mind has to, if you're paying any attention, your mind has to start saying, no, that can't be true. He must not mean that literally. There must be some trick or exception here. It can't really be everything. He means only certain aspects of my experience, but I mean every aspect of your experience, everything. So you are doing this all the time, but you don't know it because it's happening largely unconsciously. And what you want in order to be successful in anything in your life is you want to actually be doing that consciously. Hopefully that makes sense. It's not that should just be obvious, right? That in order to be successful, you want to create your experience consciously. But again, the vast majority of your experience, which you are already creating, is happening unconsciously. So now see if you can piece that together. You're already creating all of your experience, but almost all of it is unconscious. So just check it out. A lot of your experience you're not happy with. Just take an inventory of today so far and notice how many of the thoughts that you've experienced are you happy with? How many of the feelings that you've experienced are you happy with? How many of your reactions are you happy with? And if you're really honest about it, you'll have to see that a significant portion of it you're not very happy with. Now, depending on how much you've been involved in this work that I'm about, then you may already have some of this awareness, and you might already start to see that you have more ability now to choose consciously your experience in alignment with what you want than you did before in the past. And so the ratio might not be so awful as it once was. But at best, let's say 50%, maybe some of you better than that, maybe 75%. I mean, that would be really good if 75% of your experience was in alignment with what you want, so that you were actually thinking thoughts that are in alignment with what you want, feeling feelings that are in alignment with what you want, imagining things that are in alignment with what you want. If all of that was happening in alignment with what you want, up to 75%, that would be spectacular. But for the majority, it's at best, it's the inverse of that, right? That 75% is not what they want. It's anxiety, fear, envy, jealousy, worry, etc. So you remember I said you've got an inner enemy that's working against you. It's working against you because what you want, actually, in truth, is completely other than the habits that this president of operations that you've installed unconsciously is all about, right? So it has a mandate. It has a mandate to maintain the status quo, which is this 75%, 85%, 95%, 99% out of alignment with what you want, so that you're worrying, you're fearful, you get angry, you know, all of these things which totally rob you of your uh, harmonious, peaceful, joyous uh, uh, happiness, right? I mean, it just robs you day in and day out, and you're just afraid of when the other shoe's going to drop, because you never know when the next negative emotion, the next negative thought, the next negative fantasy, the next fear, the next worry is going to strike. And that's just inwardly. Then there's outwardly, right? Because and here's another secret. There's no real difference between inner and outer, but for most people, that inner habit is so established of all the negativity, let's call it, what you don't want, the fear, anxiety, worry, distress, and all of that. That habit is so well established that your outer experience very strongly reflects that. And so you've managed unconsciously to surround yourself by people and situations and circumstances that just constantly are mirroring and feeding back to you what you already believe inwardly, what you're already rehearsing inwardly. And so not only are you inwardly afraid because you don't know when the next negative thing is going to strike, but you also are maybe afraid because you don't know when the next outer seeming assault is going to happen, the next angry person, or the next possibly the next situation in which you're going to experience fear, right? So you don't know when that's going to happen, but you, out of habit, you anticipate that it's likely to happen with some good regularity and frequency, right? That's probably going to happen many times a day. So that's the situation most of us are in, but we want to change that by uh, by consciously creating our experience so that it's in alignment with what we want. So far, I'm just setting the stage, just so you can understand the context in which all of this is taking place, so that you can understand the situation as it is, and then we can actually talk about what you can do practically so that you can start to change things. Okay, but just to start to see what is actually going on. So you are an infinitely creative being. There's no limit to your creativity. Let's take a step back. Okay, so we really launched in, dove into the deep end. Let's just take one step back. So I say you're an infinitely creative being. Now, who is that that's an infinitely creative being? I mean, I've already said you are, but without it just being circular, let's actually start to take a look at who is the you who's an infinitely creative being. So the one who you habitually identify as, that one's not so creative, is it? Right? That one's creativity is extremely limited because that one is really just the product of the past habits. It's really just the repetition of the same worries and anxieties and distresses and angers and resentments and all the rest of it. And so you're constantly trying to manage it and manipulate it so that it won't be as bad as it really is. But that's a terrible dead end. So we really have to start by taking a step back and assessing, evaluating, who am I really? Because I'm saying that you are an infinitely creative being, and that is the truth. But if you are trying to exercise your infinite creativity within the confines of the limited identity that you have habitually associated with, which is just a bundle of those old habits, the negativities that you don't want, then that's really going to be a recipe for frustration. So let's get that sorted out, hopefully as quickly and thoroughly as possible. But understand, and those who are here live, you've been around here long enough to know this is not a quick fix. Okay, this is something that requires, and here on YouTube, I'm about to lose everybody else, right? Because this is something that requires that you have to persistently, consistently apply yourself in order to get the results that you want. This is not something that you just push a button and it's going to be done forever for you. You actually have to be present to your experience. You have to be present and aware. And so, that's the truth. That is the truth. If you are not willing to do that, then go just, I mean, then I guess the best you can hope for is entertainment and distraction. That's really the best you can hope for is entertainment and distraction. If you're not willing to actually apply yourself, you have to have discipline. It's the only way, because the name of the game is awareness, self-awareness. If you want change, if you want to experience your life consciously in alignment with what you truly want, well, first of all, you have to know what you want. And in order to know that, you have to be aware. You can't possibly know unless you're actually aware, because otherwise all you're aware of is what's being fed to you, which is just feeding back from the old stuff that wasn't quite it, right? It's like all the guesses that were not it. You thought, oh, maybe if I could get that, that would be good. But that's not what you wanted. You thought, oh, if I could have that car, if I could have that spouse, if I could have that career, if I could have that much money, if I could live that place, if I could live that lifestyle, if I could learn that thing. You make all these guesses and none of them are actually it. So you actually have to have a subtlety of awareness to actually start to become aware of what you actually want, which requires self-awareness. You have to be aware of yourself. So again, stepping back, drinking from the fire hose today, by the way, in case you didn't know, but it's just on. So if you the first thing is you have to start to become aware of who you are. So I say, and I'm repeating myself because again, it requires repetition. If you Because if you think you hear something and you think, oh, I already know that, and you don't know it at all. So you have to hear it again and again and again and again and again and again before finally something in you says, gee, maybe I don't actually know what that really is. Maybe I don't know. I've heard it so many times. Know thyself, know thyself, know thyself. And I'm just thinking, oh, that's stupid. I already know myself. Let's get on to the real goods. Finally, after the millionth repetition, something in here clicks and says, gee, what is this self that I'm supposed to know? I'm not really sure. And that's when that's when the journey actually begins. So we have to take a step back and question, who am I really? I'm saying, again, repeating, you are an infinitely creative being. So just take that in for a moment. Just accept the possibility that you are an infinitely creative being. Just accept that maybe that's true. Now, notice who you normally think of as yourself. Your name, your story, your body, your habits, your relationships, all of that stuff, right? The things you know, your degrees, your credentials, your whatever, your mistakes, your failures, your shortcomings, all of that stuff. Now, is any of that infinitely creative? You can say no, because that would be true, right? None of that is infinitely creative. That's infinitely dull. That's infinitely repetitive. How do you know any of that stuff? Only because you repeated it enough times, right? You didn't have a name at the beginning. They kept pointing at you and telling you your name. And eventually, after enough repetition, you're like, oh, this one that I can't see, this one is this name. It took that repetition as is like has been beaten into you. You've been branded. So that, and then all of the other stuff too, because you think over and over and over, oh, I need that, I need that, I need that, I need that. If only I had that, I would be happy. If only I had that, I would be happy. If only I had that, I would be happy. Then, after enough repetition, that gets beaten into you, and you just say, like an automaton, because you've been hypnotized. Oh, that's what I am. I am that. I am that thing. I am that belief. I am that identity. I am that image. I am that thing that I keep repeating over and over and over and over. But see, I'm telling you, you're an infinitely creative being. And just see, none of that is creative at all. It's just dull repetition. It's an automaton. So, and you just accept and open to the possibility that what I'm telling you is the truth. You're an infinitely creative being. So now take a look and see, who is that one? Who is that infinitely creative being? And you can't find it in the usual way, because the usual way is just to look to the things that you have repeated over and over and over, they only have a sense of reality only because they've been repeated over and over and over and over. But there's actually nothing there. I mean, just say your name, say your own name, say it over and over and over and over and over. Just indulge me for a moment. Just say your name over and over and over and over. When you actually are paying attention to what you're doing, to the sound that's happening, can you notice that it's strange, it's empty? It used to have meaning to it, but when you really pay attention to it in this way, you start to realize, oh, it's hollow. There's nothing there. There's no real substance to it. The substance that and this is true of everything, 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 I mean, without exception, everything is like this. It seems to have substance only because we're not fully paying attention. It's a trick, it's an illusion, so that it seems to have substance because we don't quite pay attention. It's sleight of hand. You're distracted somewhere else and you think there's something here when there's nothing there. And so all of the things that we've identified with are like that. They're actually empty, but because we're not fully here, we're elsewhere. Our attention is always slightly somewhere else. And so we make the mistake of believing that there's something here. It's like there's a classic example. I think it's from one of the Upanishads, where it's likened to a firebrand. So a firebrand is like if you were ever around a campfire and you had a stick in the fire and then you pulled the stick out and the tip has a red glowing ember, okay? You wave it around in the dark. You see an illusion that there's a circle of fire. There's no circle of fire. It's an illusion generated by the fact that your attention can't be on the thing, and so your attention can't be everywhere in that, and so it starts to generate this illusion that there's a circle of fire, and everything is like that. So you are an infinitely creative being. All of the things that you are in the habit of putting your attention on, you can't actually keep your full attention on. And so they give the illusion of having substance. But here, when you actually start to look to find out who is this infinitely creative being, the thing about the infinitely creative being is that it's not a thing. It's so you can't be aware of it in the way that you're aware of other things, which is to say, it's not illusory. It's not something that you can say the name and then it conjures the sense of solidity, because the truth of who you are as an infinitely creative being has no solidity at all. It's the substanceless substance from which all things arise. Okay, so you are this infinitely creative being, and you can't find yourself in the usual way. But you're undeniably here. So the brilliance is that you don't actually have to find yourself, you just are. Everything else you have to constantly be putting effort in. But you are, as an infinitely creative being, are the one thing, you're not a thing, but language fails here, so we'll just say a thing. You're the one thing that doesn't require any effort at all. This is an amazing thing. So I said that for those who came in late, I'm revealing the secrets to having success in anything that you want in life, anything at all, material, spiritual, anything at all. You can have absolute success, and I'm revealing the secrets of it. And it's a process. So it's not a it's not a slideshow presentation with 3 points that I am going to give you the 3 secrets, and you can take notes about it, and then you can say, oh, I know the secret. I mean, I could do that, and there would be some value in it, but it would mostly, the problem with it is, remember I said we have to have a lot of repetition. And so if you get the slideshow presentation with the 3 secrets in bullet points, then you think, oh, I already know that, and you move on to the next thing. Whereas here, what's available is that something's being repeated over and over and over and over and over in different ways, pointed to, so that you become slightly confused, slightly disoriented, And then you actually have to start to be present and actually have to really finally pay attention in a good way, in the right way, in an awake way. And that's a very different mode of operation than the normal way in which we are accustomed to functioning, which is unconscious. So, as review, you're an infinitely creative being. You're creating all of your experience all the time, every last bit of it, everything. But most of it is happening unconsciously, just through habit. So what you want, secret number one, secret number one to success in anything that you want in your life is that you want to actually use your creative faculties consciously. Because if you don't, then you cannot help but use your creative faculties, but you will be using them unconsciously, because that's what's happening all the time for everybody, not just certain people, everybody, every single human. I suppose it's true of every being. I hadn't really considered that, but certainly human. So without overstretching, I'll just say for sure, every human, every human, every single one, awake, not awake, it doesn't matter. Everybody is an infinitely creative being and is creating every last aspect of their experience, always, without exception. But overwhelmingly, it is unconscious. And so it's just repetition. It's repetition of the same old things. Now, over time, en masse, there is what we call evolution, right? That process that we can identify as evolution, because there is a change that takes place. There are changes that take place. That change that takes place, I would say it's not always for better. It's not always for worse. Sometimes for better and sometimes for worse, right? It's not, it's the one idea that is maybe dominant in certain cultural circles is that that evolution is all good. It's all positive. It's up and up and up and up. We're ascending forever. But that seems very unlikely. It seems very, very unlikely. So what's really going on is if you're just asleep, if you're unconscious, then you're along for the ride with the masses. And the change will be sometimes up and sometimes down, sometimes good, sometimes bad. So you are just whatever is happening in whatever the dominant forces are, you are just subject to that if you're asleep. And you don't want that. I mean, obviously, that's why you're here. You don't want that. You're unhappy with that. So you want to use your creative faculties consciously to create in alignment with what you actually want. So this is the secret this is secret number one, is that you can use your creative faculties consciously to create in alignment with what you want. Again, and there's a lot, I'm going to repeat that there is repetition. So I'm repeating the fact that there's a lot of repetition here, just to explain why I'm repeating myself. So in order to create consciously in alignment with what you want, there's some prerequisites. First of all, you actually have to be present. It's an impossibility for you to create consciously if you're not conscious. So you actually have to be aware of who you are. Second thing is you have to be aware of what you want. Now, these are they go hand in hand. They're almost the same thing, who you are and what you want. But there's a minor distinction, so I'll just say them as two different things. But just see how true this is. So I know at this point, I've lost everybody on YouTube. I publish these, for those who are live, I publish these on YouTube, and now everybody on YouTube is checked out because this is too much for them, except for maybe 2 or 3, and congratulations to you. Because it's very difficult for people to actually move beyond this force within them that is working to maintain the status quo. and it will argue for why this is too stupid or too difficult or all of the various things. But when you've had enough of that, then there's a seriousness in you that awakens, and you say, okay, I really have started to see that I have been I'll use the word that those of you who are alive, you'll recognize that the irony of the fact that I'm going to use this word, but you've been a victim of your own delusion. Okay, you start to wake up to that fact. You start to realize that you've been a victim of your own delusion. You've been hypnotized, and and that hypnosis works to maintain the status quo because that's its function. And you start to realize at a certain point, there's a certain maturity, and you realize I have been a victim of my own delusion, of my own hypnosis. I have been asleep at the wheel, didn't realize it. And when you have that realization, then something in you says, I can't go back to sleep. Please let me stay awake. And you don't even know what awake is, but you know you've had a glimpse of it, even though you don't even know what it is. But you know you've had a glimpse of something. Something has dawned on you. You know you just don't want to go back to sleep anymore because it's too painful. So when you have that realization, then you're willing to stick around for this kind of insane sounding talk. It just goes round and round and round, repeats the same things because there's something in you that says, yeah, I need to wake up. I need to actually be aware of myself. I need to use my creative faculties in alignment with what I want. So step one in this is you have to be aware of yourself. That means that you have to recognize that you are an infinitely creative being, which means you're none of the things that you habitually think of yourself as being. So if you took nothing away from this other than just this one thing, please take this. Be aware of yourself as much as possible. And if you don't know how to be aware of yourself, then just simple technique. Just notice whatever you can be, whatever things you can be aware of, that's not you. Because the things that you can be aware of, those are those conjured things like the firebrand. Okay, so the image that I gave of the firebrand, you have the ember on the end of the stick and you wave it around in the dark and it looks like there's a glowing circle there. It's conjured. There's no glowing circle there. It's just an illusion. So everything that you can be aware of is like that. It's a trick of the mind that says there's something there. And out of habit, we identify with those things. So I gave examples of those. My name, my body, my past, my relationships, my successes, my failures, my shortcomings, my ambitions, all these things. Okay, we identify with those things, but the simple technique that I'm encouraging you to use, which will help you tremendously because it's the prerequisite for success in anything that you want in life, is you have to be aware of yourself. And in order to be aware of yourself as you are as an infinitely creative being, you have to be able to discriminate in Sanskrit. This is called viveka. Viveka means this discrimination between what is true and false, or what is real and unreal. I mean, the language is all funny here, so forgive that. But you have to start to be able to recognize what you are and what you're not. You have to recognize you as an infinitely creative being and all of those things those conjured objects that you have out of habit identified with. You have to be able to discriminate between these. This guy, very well-known, sort of well-known, one of the more well-known yogis in the West, guy named Vivekananda. He was a disciple of Ramakrishna. He came to the West and made a big splash. This was before Yogananda. Yogananda came after Vivekananda. I think that's true. Maybe, yeah, I think that's true. That's true. Yeah. And so Vivekananda, the name Vivekananda. So Viveka is this discrimination. Vivekananda, Ananda means bliss. So the bliss of discrimination. So the name is telling us that this discrimination leads to bliss. So I'm pointing this out just to say there's a precedent here. So if you take this one thing, it leads to bliss, the bliss that arises from knowing yourself, being able to discriminate between who you are and everything else. Who you are as an infinitely creative being and your creation, right? So all of these things are your creation. It's like the thing, the firebrand, the circle that you see, the illusory circle, that's your creation. You've created that, conjured that. So the experience is real, right? If you have that experience, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, then I apologize because this won't be a useful image for you. But if you've ever had the experience in the dark, I guess the more modern version would be those glow sticks that people use at certain kinds of events. But the same idea, right? If you spin it fast enough, it gives the illusion of a circle of light. So the experience is real. You have that experience. You have conjured it, though. It's not there objectively. It's only a subjective reality. I say only a subjective reality. And maybe if there's time, I'll get around to how that's not only subjective. That's rather everything is only subjective. But it's only a subjective experience. It's not an objective experience. There is no circle of light objectively out there, but subjectively, the experience is real. But the point is, because it's subjective, you are conjuring it. It's not out there. You are conjuring it. It is your creation. Absolutely 100% your creation. And so you want to be able to start to distinguish between who you are as the infinitely creative being and your creation, which is everything else. So do that as often as possible. Just whenever you don't have something better to do, which would be most of the time, just start to notice that. Just ask yourself, this thing that I'm aware of presently, my thoughts, my feelings, the colors, the sky, my imagination of my future, my projection of positive and negative things, my rehashing of the past, all of these things. Just notice what are they? Are they objective things out there that you can absolutely 100% get hold of, or is it actually some subjective experience that's your creation? And then just start to see that you are not that. You are not your subjective creation. You are aware of the subjective creation. You are aware of the subjective creation. So that's one very powerful thing. If you do that, it leads to bliss. Vivekananda. So this is gold. I have to tell you it's gold because otherwise you'll say, "Oh, I got to, do this isn't good enough." It's the one. If you did any one of these things, it's like you don't need all of the things. You just need one thing. It's like Vivekananda, Yogananda. They're all Anandas, and all the great yogis. They're all Anandas because their names tell you that this is because the nature of who you are as an infinitely creative being is Satchit Ananda. So you are bliss. That is who you are. And the names of these great yogis, they tell you by what means is that bliss discovered. So you don't have to be you don't have to do all of the means. You just need the one that delivers you to the truth of who you are, because that's all that's needed. So you just take one thing. You don't need to take all of the things and try to do all of them. You take one thing and you make that work for you. The one thing that you can make work for you is the one thing that you need. So just take one thing that you can actually work with, and make it work for you so that you can discover the Ananda, because that's the secret, because that Ananda is this power that gives rise to everything. So I said that this talk is telling you the secrets of how to succeed in anything that you want in life. And that power, that Ananda of you as an infinitely creative being, is the secret. It is the one power that gives rise to all things, whether you consider it success or failure, whether you consider it positive, negative, or neutral. All things are created by that one power. And you are that. You are that one power. You are an infinitely creative being. You are creating your own experience all the time. So you start to see, whenever you don't have something better to do, just check it out. Just start observing and noticing, what are you aware of? And you'll notice that your attention is going to all kinds of things. And so you're aware of that sensation, you're aware of that thought, you're aware of that memory, you're aware of that future projection, you're aware of that fear, you're aware of that anxiety, you're aware of this next thought, you're aware of that worry, you're aware of this hope, you're aware of that sensation. Round and round and round it goes, flitting from one object to the next. But you just start to see, okay, that's like a firebrand. It's this object, that sensation, that memory, that thing. It's all being conjured subjectively. And maybe at first you have this sounds like crazy and you can't understand it at all, but maybe I should move on to another secret. Okay. So, because in order to make sense of what I've said so far, because if you want to have success, you need to stay with something all the way through. Like, think about if you wanted to run a marathon, as an example. What is a marathon? It's 26.2 miles or something like that. I'll just say it's 26.2. It might be something totally different, but it's just for this, for today, as an infinitely creative being, I determined that a marathon is 26.2 miles. And don't you tell me otherwise. It's, you feel free to tell me otherwise, but if you run a marathon and you run 26.1 miles, you didn't run a marathon. You ran almost a marathon, but you didn't run a marathon. So you could now, and you could run that 26.1 miles faster than anybody else, but you did not run a marathon. You did not win the marathon. It's an impossibility, because you didn't run the whole marathon. You only ran 26.1 miles. You could run 26.1 miles twice as fast as anybody else, but you are not the world's fastest marathon runner, because you didn't complete the marathon. You only ran 26.1 miles. So this is like everything. If you want to have the complete success, you have to complete it. You have to actually give your attention to it all the way through. So with any of these things, when I'm suggesting, here's a way, this technique of Viveka as an example. If you just do it half-assed, then you will get half-assed results. I mean, that's just the truth. And you could do many, many, many things half-assed, and they could all be great things, but you'll still get half-assed results because you only did them half-assed. You could do them really well, but half-assed. Just to be clear about it, I mean, you could be, again, the world's greatest at doing this thing half-assed, but you only did it half-assed. You only did half of it. You did 3/4 of it. You did 99% of it, but you didn't do all of it. You have to go all the way, all the way. So, so secrets to success, as review. Step number 1, you have to know who you are, which requires that you can actually discriminate who you are from what you're not. So you have to see that you are an infinitely creative being, and in order to recognize that, because you cannot But you cannot uh, recognize yourself as an infinitely creative being as an object, because you're not. So, but you're in the habit of giving your attention to objects, which are all conjured illusions of the mind. So in order to start to recognize yourself, it's like the background cannot really be seen. The foreground is seen, or the space isn't seen, the objects are seen. But when you start to you see, okay, object, 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 object. If you do that long enough, and you can identify, okay, those are all objects. You starts to kind of come out of it's hidden. It becomes more apparent all of a sudden that there's this space there in which all of the objects are occurring. You couldn't see the space, but you start to recognize it. It starts to be enlivened in your awareness, even though you're not seeing it as an object. And in the same way, through this practice of discrimination, where you start to see, okay, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not any of these things that I'm in the habit of giving my attention to, but I am here undeniably. Undeniably, I'm here. So what is this? What is this that I am? And you start to see, oh, there's something here, but I don't know what it is. It becomes clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer, even though you can't put your finger on it. Eventually, it pops, and you say, oh. And then you're a crazy person, and you tell other people about it, and they're like, what are you talking about? This is stupid. Go away. but but it's real for you. You recognize it. So this is step number one. Do that. Step number two. Oh, so another technique for that, which I often advocate, just to be clear, for the sake of clarity. Breath awareness. Just do breath awareness. It's very, very powerful. Breath awareness does the same thing. I'm not sure. I guess if you do breath awareness, you're I don't know what you would be then. Something Ananda. You would be something Ananda. Breath awareness Ananda. But you just do breath awareness. Don't try to control the breath. Just be aware of the breath. Just allow the breath. Just be aware. The more that you just allow and just give your attention to the breath, it does the same thing. You start to realize directly who you are. Okay, so this is step number one. Step number two, which is very intimately related to step number one, is what do you want? And when I give you the next secret, it will become clearer why you need to know what you want. So this next secret is, okay, you are an infinitely creative being. As an infinitely creative being, you have two fundamental powers. Those who are here live, you've heard me talk about this before. Two fundamental powers. Anybody want to tell me what they are? No, I'll tell you what they are. You have attention and intention. Okay, so attention is what are you putting your attention on, right? You have this power. You can't say exactly what it is. What exactly is attention? But you know you have that power. It's your ability to focus on something, to shine the light of awareness. So that's one of your fundamental powers. Second power is intention. Intention is what gives shape. So remember, you've got all objects, all objects of awareness, all of creation, everything that you're aware of as sensory perception and as thoughts and inner senses and all the rest of it. All of that is conjured like the firebrand. So it's all subjective experience conjured. And the way that so just think about this for a moment. It's like looking at clouds in the sky. So you can look at the clouds in the sky, and if you stare at them for a while, you say, oh, look, it's a dragon. Oh, look, it's a pig. Oh, look, it's an automobile. Oh, it's a tree. But none of those things are there, right? You've conjured it subjectively. You're seeing those things there. Now, how is it that you see that there? So one thing is you're giving your attention, right? If you didn't give your attention, you couldn't see it. So attention is a requirement, but intention is that power which gives shape, gives form. Because as your pure essential self is as an infinitely creative being, there you are formless. There's no form there. You are pure potential. So there's nothing there, but everything is there in potential. So nothing actualized, but everything in potential. It's like a stem cell, right? So it can be anything, can become anything, but it's not really anything in and of itself. I don't know that much about stem cells, but so I'm making that part up, but it's something akin to that. Okay. So in a similar parallel kind of way, you are undifferentiated, formless awareness, but you are full of potential. So undifferentiated, but full of the potential for anything. But what determines what it is that is manifest? What is it that's seen? What is it that becomes differentiated? And that's what I'm calling intention. So again, if you're looking at this clouds in the sky and you see, oh, look, there's a lamb. There's no lamb there in the sky. Hopefully we can all agree on that. But you perceive a lamb. That perception of the lamb is what I'm calling the intention that gives that shape to it, that starts where that form emerges. It's because of the intention. You see a lamb and you don't see something else. Maybe somebody else sees something different until you say, oh, look, it's a lamb. And they say, oh, yeah, it's a lamb too. Or maybe their intention is so different that you say, look, it's a lamb. And they say, what are you talking about? You're crazy. There's no lamb there. It's a pizza. I don't know how you would see a pizza in the sky, but maybe you see pizza in the sky. So the intention is what gives the shape to it. Okay, so these are the two powers that you have. Keep it simple. You've just got two powers. You want to have success in life. You need to master these two powers. Forget about everything else. So you need to have, I mean, prerequisite for being able to exercise your powers is you have to know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are and you're mistaking yourself for all the things that you're not, then you can't exercise your powers because you don't know that you have those powers. You think you're powerless. You think that you're Joe Blow and you're a victim of the economy. You can't exercise your powers then. You're completely consumed by all of your own habits and negativity and limitations that go along with the identity of Joe Blow, who's a victim of the economy. There's no way you can change that. At that level, that's just what I call rearranging the furniture. This people just continue to maintain the same basic status quo, constantly working, wasting, squandering their energy, imagining that they're doing something different, but they're doing nothing different, just rearranging the furniture. So the prerequisite is you have to know who you are before you can exercise your two powers. So that's why fundamental thing, practically speaking, for any of this is you have to do the work consistently and persistently to recognize who you are. I'm suggesting two basic practices. There are many others. Two basic practices that anybody could do. They're very powerful. They're very safe. Okay, doesn't require, you don't have to to read a big manual or anything. You don't have to. It's very. You can just start doing them today. Breath awareness, or this technique of viveka, discrimination. Okay, you could do both. Do one or the other, but do it. Apply yourself to it earnestly, so that you can start to see who you are directly. You cannot think your way to it. You have to actually see it. It has to emerge for you directly so that you see, oh yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. I am formless awareness. I am that space in which everything is coming and going. I am an infinitely creative being. You have to see it directly. Then keep seeing it over and over and over. It's not like you see it once and then that's it. You keep seeing it over and over and over, but keep seeing it. And then second step is you have to exercise your two powers. So One is attention, the ability to keep your attention on what you want. But the second thing is intention. You have to know what you want. So remember, I said the definition of success, to be successful in anything that you want, is you have to use your infinite creative powers in alignment with what you want. It's such a simple and obvious definition that most people will just dismiss it as that's pointless. Can't possibly help me, but it can't help you if you don't let it. It can be very helpful if you let it be helpful for you. So you can just keep things simple in your life and recognize, okay, gee, I want to be successful. How can I be successful? Well, I need to use my infinite creative powers in alignment with what I want consciously, right? Oh, okay. So I don't have to do all the other things that I thought I had to do. I don't have to go take that training, and I don't have to go to that workshop, and I don't have to read that book, and I don't have to do all those things. Maybe those are supportive, maybe not, but that's all secondary. I don't really actually need any of those things. What I really need is to use my infinite creative faculties consciously in alignment with what I want, instead of using my infinite creative powers unconsciously to create what I don't want, which is what I've been doing. So you first of all have to know who you are. Secondly, you have to know that you have these two powers, attention and intention. Then you have to exercise those. So what do you want? Get clear on what you want. And this is not necessarily an overnight thing. It's like a lifelong process. Okay. Every day, ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want? What do I really want? And we don't have time to go into all of the details of how you can drill down and get really, really clear, but just every day, just make that a habit. First thing, last thing, every day. So simple, very powerful. What do I want? Write it down. It'll take you 5 minutes if you do it really sincerely and you write it down, but it'll be very powerful. You'll see if you do it. If you do it every day sincerely, for the rest of your life, you will see this one thing will be very powerful for you. What do I want? And really, prioritize it. What do I most want? Because you want many things, right? You want the big screen TV, and you want the barbecue grill, and you want sports car. I mean, not you. Well, some of you. I'm pointing at you. But you have all these things that you think you want. We all have things that we think we want. But do you really want those things? All kinds of little exercises you can go through to help clarify that for yourself. I'm not going to go into all that right now. We get bogged down. That's like minutia that we don't need to get into right now. But in broad strokes, just ask yourself, what do I want? And then is that what I want most? What do I want most? And don't should yourself to death. Don't say, oh, but I should want this thing and I shouldn't want that thing. Oh, I should be really high-minded and spiritual and altruistic and whatever. But if what you really want is the other thing that you have a negative opinion of, don't do that to yourself. Just tell the truth. Oh, I really want that thing. Fine, great. You really want that thing. Good, wonderful. Be clear about it. I want that. Because if you want something and you're denying yourself that, then you're just at war with yourself. And how is that going to turn out well for you? Just fulfill your desires. If it's not really what you want, when you fulfill it, you'll realize it. And then you can get clearer about what you really want. So just use your creative faculties intelligently, consciously aligned with what you want, so that you can get clear on what you really want. It's a process. It's a virtuous cycle instead of a vicious cycle. When you're conscious, aware, present to your experience, and you align yourself with what you want, you're inquiring into what you want, you're using your creative faculties to manifest what you want, you get clearer and clearer and clearer. So you just every day ask yourself, what do I want? First thing in the morning, last thing at night, just what do I really want? Then this is my intention. Okay, so now you have something to focus your attention on, so that you can start to let everything else go. Why are you going to waste your time on anything else? Okay, so then we can really get into, this is the real secret. I mean, those are all the secrets, but now that you know all those secrets, then we can put it all together into this very, very powerful process, which I can reveal to you now because we're 30 minutes past anybody watching this on YouTube. except for the one person. Congratulations to you. So we can put all this together. So you start to notice, this is going to be reviewed, but pay attention to how it all fits together so that you can make sense of it for yourself, because again, this is gold. You can't get this anywhere else. I mean, a few places you can get it, very few places. But you have to recognize it in order to, you have to recognize that this is gold, or else you won't use it properly. You'll say, oh, I've got to do all these other things. You'll overcomplicate your life, and then you're squandering your energy. So keep it really simple. Listen to how simple this is. When you know who you are, you know what you want, then you know what your powers are, so you can use them to consciously create what you want in your life. How do you do that? Well, you only have two powers. Can you remember what the two powers are? They rhyme: intention, attention. So you can remember it that way. Attention, intention. Only two powers. You have only two powers: attention, intention. See how simple this is, but it's enormously powerful, because that means that you don't have to overcomplicate things. You just have to keep your attention on what you want. If you do that, I have to roll. Sorry, I rolled my eyes. I rolled my eyes because I recognize in myself, and I see it in everybody else, this, you say, oh, that couldn't be it. That couldn't be it. And then we're right back into the old, same old, same old. But you can change your life powerfully, starting right now. Just keep it simple. You have two powers: attention and intention. When you are clear on what you want, then that's the intention. Now, all you have to do is keep your attention on what you want. Now, I say that's all there is, but then that's a lifetime activity. And this is the reason why the reason why people won't do it is because that we have atrophied these two fundamental powers that we have. We have atrophied in our command of them, so that we are like I don't know what to liken it to, but it's not good. It's something, something not pleasant. Okay. So we find ourselves very challenged, because look, you cannot keep your attention, and I'm not saying this to be insulting, it's just the truth. You can't, because it's the same for me. You cannot keep your attention on one thing for longer than a minute at best. And that's being very generous. Apparently the actual numbers on that, when there's actual research on it, it's much less than that. Seconds. You can't keep your attention on anything for longer than seconds, because the next thing comes along and you say, ooh, that seems important. So, and I'm saying this not to be insulting or demeaning or anything. I'm just pointing it out so that you can actually grow your two powers. You want to get clearer and clearer on what you want, and then also learn how to keep your attention on it. So the good news is that we've atrophied in our use of these skills, but we can regain command. It's definitely something we have the ability to do. There's no question about it. You have that ability. How can you do that? Well, I've already told you how to do it. And unfortunately, fortunately, I don't know if it's fortunate, unfortunate, but most people won't do it because it's not push button. They're just looking for the next thing that promises them a push button solution. Oh, That sounds hard. You mean I got to do something? You mean I've got to actually pay attention? You mean I've got to, grow my abilities? I've got to, oh, gee, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'll, maybe I'll just watch another thing on YouTube. Next, right? So, but if you want success, you can have success in anything you want in your life. Anything, anything, anything at all. Really, there is no limit at all. Whatever you want. You want $1 billion, you can have it. You want amazing health, you can have it. You want um, perfected knowledge in any domain, you can have it. You want spiritual realization, you can have it. Anything. I mean that sincerely. Anything. But what's required is you have to actually want it, because you're not going to keep you cannot keep your attention on it long enough to manifest it if you don't actually want it, right? It's like if you don't want to successfully run a marathon, you will not run the marathon, right? You might run a mile, 2 miles, 5 miles, 7 miles, 20 miles, but you're not going to run the whole marathon unless you really want it. Why? Because it's hard. you know, like you have to want it. So, and when I say it's hard, what I really mean is like running the marathon is not hard in and of itself. You just got to put one foot in front of the other. That's not what's hard. What's hard is all of the resistance, because there's all of the habits that are there that say, oh, you can't do it. Oh, this hurts. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I'd rather do this other thing. Oh, it's raining. And so all of that other stuff is there, the resistance. That's what's hard. So you actually have to want it. So your intention has to be true. But if you actually want it, and you know you want it, because if you want something and you haven't manifested, it hurts. It's bothering you. It is a thorn in your side. It is a rock in your shoe. You want it. All the other things, they come and go. You're like big screen TV. That's here today, gone tomorrow. But the thing that's bothering you, the thing day after day after day after day, where you say, "Oh, this is really bothering me." You need that. That's true. You have a real intention there. You want to remedy that. You want to know the truth there. You want to manifest that. So good news. You absolutely can succeed. Guaranteed. In fact, not only can you succeed, you must succeed. It is your mandate. You have to. You have to. There's no way out. It's your own desire. Nobody else is foisting it upon you. You desire it, and it's emanating from a very deep place. So fulfill that desire. And the way to do that is, now all you have to do is keep your attention on it. And so the same thing is true here. Keeping your attention on it is not hard, except that you have a habit of putting your attention everywhere else because you're easily distractible. So am I. So I'm not saying this is something bad about you at all. I'm just telling the truth so that you can hopefully tell the truth for yourself, but know that you can develop that skill so that you can succeed, and you must. You have to succeed. You have to. You're not going to get out of this just because you exit out of this lifetime. If that's an authentic desire, you will just come back around again, because that's why you're here in the first place. And the only reason you're here is because of that desire. That desire is what gave rise to this lifetime. So you must fulfill the desire. Must. So do it. Have courage. Know that you can. You absolutely can succeed. You must succeed. You have everything that you need. And don't waste your time and energy anymore. Be clear every day, every night, what you want. Keep your focus on that throughout the day. Notice everything else that comes up that interferes with that. Everything else that comes and competes. And this is where you hone that power. So you have, remember, 2 powers: intention, attention. So you're getting clearer on your intention, what you want. And by the way, you can do this with all the other stuff. It doesn't have to be like, maybe $1 million is not really your like heart desire, but if there's not an enormous amount of resistance to it and you want it enough, you can use the same powers to manifest it, undoubtedly. Okay. But over time, you'll get really clear. There's this, a handful of things, and then really just one thing that you absolutely must realize fully. So use your powers to manifest what you want to succeed in, what you must succeed in, and what you desire to succeed in. And you just have these two powers. So your intention, whatever the intention is, and again, it can be a relatively superficial intention, but over time it gets less and less superficial because you start to realize that doesn't do it, none of those things really did it. This is the thing I really need. So you hone the intention, and then you keep your attention on it. Throughout the day, you start to notice, oh, gee whiz, my attention is going to all these other things. They come up and they compete. And what do I mean by that? I'm giving, again, you're drinking from the fire hose. I'm going to just give it to you, though. This is gold. Notice all of the things that your attention goes to: worries, fears, resentments, anxieties, envy, pride. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you just have to keep looking and you'll see it. I promise you. You might say, oh, I don't have any pride. I'm not prideful. But you are. Everybody suffers from these things, some more than others. But you just will start to see, because you'll see something will happen and you get your feelings hurt. Oh, they didn't, so and so didn't think I was as great as I think I am. And so your attention goes to that. Your attention goes to that. It's a little habit that says, oh, everybody else should think I'm so wonderful. If somebody doesn't immediately jump up to defend how great I am, then, oh no. And so your energy is siphoned away because your energy is directed by your attention. Wherever your attention is, that's where the energy is going. So you're an infinitely creative being filled with infinite potential, infinite for anything. But that infinite potential, which is potential energy, is directed by your attention. It manifests through your attention and intention. So if your attention is going to, oh, my feelings are hurt, I can't believe that, my friend didn't stand up for me and didn't defend how great I am, then there your energy goes. You just want to see that. What that means is your energy is not going to what you want. It's going to this other thing. How much do you want that thing? You start to see it. You see, oh, that pride. It didn't seem like such a bad thing until I started to become aware of it. And you realize, wow, that pride is an enormous waste of my time and energy. Siphons my energy into all kinds of things that I don't want. Gee, I guess I don't really want to do that anymore. So then when the pride program comes up and starts running again, you can say, no, thank you. I'm going to keep my attention on what I want, right? And so you start to see anger. Somebody does something to you, and oh, here's this surge of anger that comes up, and you up to a certain point, you think, oh, that's just how it is. I don't have any choice in the matter. But look, when you recognize you have these two fundamental powers, you'll see I can choose where I'm going to give my attention. Am I really wanting to indulge this? Why? It creates all kinds of negative hormonal loops in my body, ages me quickly, interferes with my digestion, interferes with my sleep quality, skews my perception so that I'm seeing things negatively. No, thank you. Actually, I don't want that. And you start to realize you have the ability. You can just say, no. It requires that you just keep giving your attention to what you want. In the contrast, when you know what you want to keep your attention on, you start to see all of the other stuff in contrast. So that's it. These are the secrets to having success in anything that you want in your life. Anything at all. You are an infinitely creative being. You are always using your creative faculties to create your experience. Every last bit of it. And most of that is happening unconsciously, but you can reclaim conscious control over that so that you can have success by creating consciously what you want. And you do that by, number one, recognizing who you are. When you recognize who you are, you recognize that you have two fundamental powers: attention and intention. And those two powers, or your ability to exercise those powers, is atrophied, but you can exercise them and regain mastery over them, and you have unlimited potential. So wherever you are starting from, you just start from there. You use those powers consistently, persistently, and they will grow. You will get better at them. You may suck at it at first. I sucked at it at first. I still do, but I'm much better at it. Much better. So you can get much better. If I can get better, anybody can get better, I think. I'm not the worst. I mean, I didn't start out as the worst, but pretty bad. Big time victim mentality. You know, it was really bad. So I'm confident that anybody can succeed if I can succeed. And I know that I can succeed because I'm living proof of it. I may not be, Yogananda, but then again, there was only one Yogananda. I'm me. I'm this one Ananda. You know, we all have our own path. You have your own path. You start where you are. You walk your path. You can succeed. Absolutely. So I hope that you have found this helpful, not too insulting, and hopefully inspiring, and instructive. And I hope it was simple. I tried to keep it simple, very repetitive, but that's the God's honest truth. So that's it for now. For those who are here live, I'm happy to stay in for Q&A. Blessings to you all.